All right. All right, let's get started. Thanks for tuning in to our weekly biohack workshop, where we're going to be covering the 3 theories of aging, or as I like to call them, the 3 theories of aging and disease. Now, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Marco Rodriguez. My beautiful wife, Diane, and we own Transformations Rehab Services, which is an outpatient rehab clinic in El Paso, Texas. You know, and Diane and I are blessed with a great team. We've been able to build one of the largest clinics offering neurofeedback in the country. Now, as a health care clinic or as a health professional, you know, I mention this a lot because we get approached by vendors almost on a regular basis asking us to promote their product. And most of the time, it's just another what I call a Me Too product. It lacks the scientific backing. There's really no proof that it works. So after a few years of this, I became somewhat dismissive and maybe a little jaded by all of these natural products. And that's probably the reason why I wouldn't even look at the LifeVantage opportunity for well over 3 years, simply because I thought it was just like another one of those other products out there that overpromise and underdeliver. You know, but I thank God for my dear friend Patsy, who persisted, and she stayed in contact with me for about 3 years. And finally, I was willing to sit down and look at what all the fuss was about. And I got to tell you that what I learned that day changed my life. And I thought to myself, that if this can do what they say it can do and the scientific backing is there, you know, maybe it would help my son Seth. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go back in. I'm going to mute everyone here. Let's see here. Get everybody muted. And okay, great. So all of this started because I wanted to see if this was going to actually help my son Seth. Now I'm going to share with you a couple slides that I think will be helpful for you. All right. Let's see here. Slideshow. All right, let me just introduce you to my family real quick. This is my beautiful wife, Diane. I believe she is on right now as well. And then this is our daughter, Kayla, one of our grandchildren, Destiny. And then over here, there is my daughter, Alex, my son, Mark, Patrick, Donovan, and then this little guy right here is Seth. Now, he's going to be a big part of all this because he is really the first person that I saw this work on. All right, so that's Seth. Seth is now 17 years old. When he was 7, he had a closed head injury. He was at summer camp, had an accident, fell, and sustained a closed head injury. And we did therapy with him. And now, remember, I'm a therapist. We have a clinic. We work primarily in pediatrics. We did everything we could to help him. And thank God he did survive. But he had a lot of other lingering issues that we just couldn't ever overcome. So he ended up in special education. He had some pretty significant stuttering issues, and then he also had some lack of coordination. So I thought, okay, let's see what this does with him. Because after I did the science behind it, I sort of understood why it worked, how it worked, and I thought, okay, he would be a really good person for this. So we started biohacking with him. Now, after about 6 weeks of biohacking, he takes what's called the STAR test. In the state of Texas, kids get, public schools get what's called the STAR test. He tested so high that they went back and retested him again for special education. And for the first time after 8 years of being in special education, he tested out of special education. Now I want you to take a look at his grades here. This is pre-biohacking, all right? And this is with a lot of accommodations, modifications, me being in the school almost every day. I mean, I knew all the teachers by first name, had their cell phone numbers. And so this was with a lot of work. He just struggled in school. We started biohacking, and this is his grades after 16 weeks. By this point, he had been removed from special education, and he was now taking, as you can see here, AP classes. He scores all A's, with the exception, which I think is really funny since our last name is Rodriguez. The only B that he got was in Spanish. This year, he is taking almost all AP classes, and he is crushing it. Not only that, but we saw that his coordination started to get better. And so this is Seth now. This was actually last year. And so now he decided that he was going to compete in judo and jiu-jitsu. So if you see him here at a tournament, this is at the Hayashi tournament here in El Paso at the Coliseum. He's an orange belt competing against a bigger, stronger brown belt. This guy outweighed Seth by about 30 pounds. And Seth was really able to go in there and hold his own. So I got really excited about this. And I remember coming to the clinic and just really telling everybody, right? Isn't that what we do when we see something, we experience something, we want to share it with other people. So I shared it with our good friend, Anna Cox. Now, Anna, she's a good friend of ours, but she also works for us. She was our kind of our marketing director for our clinic, what we call a client services director. And her job was to be out in the field, visiting doctors, moving and grooving, but she has stage 3 arthritis. And it started to get so bad that we had to take her out of the field and we put her in an office helping out with the billing department. And she would come to work every morning super early because she didn't want anyone to see her using her walker. She had already ordered her wheelchair and she was using a shower chair. So I shared this with her and she says, I don't have anything to lose. My life is pretty much over. So let me see what this can do for me. It only took about a month or so. And I started to see changes and progress in her. She comes in one day, no more walker. She progressed so well that several months later, we took a trip to Puerto Vallarta. We brought her with us, and she hikes a total of 3 miles over a hill, really kind of almost a small mountain, because she wanted to go to one of the excursions and swim with the sea lions. Now, remember, just a few months prior, this woman was in a walker, had already ordered her wheelchair, and was using a shower chair because she couldn't stand. The pain was so much. And so I started to see this and I thought, wow, okay, there's got to be something to this. So we shared this with another person. Now, this is Lori Miranda. She's also a friend of ours. She also works with us. And so she said, well, I want to try this with my son. Now, her son, Anthony, she doesn't mind me sharing the story. She knows that I'm using her picture. And we're going to talk about Anthony here. Anthony was diagnosed on the autism spectrum, had a lot of neurologic atypicalities, was nonverbal, well, virtually nonverbal. He could mimic, so he would have what's called echolalia and just some other small little one-word phrases. But she starts biohacking with him. And it wasn't just a matter of a few weeks. He comes into the office, engaging my wife, Diane, in a full and complete conversation about his day, going into detail, how they were at the water slide. The water was cold, but it was hot outside. Talking about his future. He talks about how he wants, when he grows up, he wants to own a taco truck. And I look over at Lori and she's in tears and she's telling us how he had just started talking just a few days before. Now, Anthony was around 9 years old at the time, had been receiving therapy for almost the greater part of his life. And these protocols did for him in just a matter of a few weeks what years and years and years of therapy could not. So I started to get really super excited about it. And I started diving into the science to really figure out why this works. Now, the term we're going to use today is a term called biohacking. Biohacking is a term that's used within the science of nutrigenomics. Now, nutrigenomics is the science of how natural compounds affect your body all the way down to the expression of your genes. Now, we all know that if you eat junk food, well, the chances are that you're not going to be very healthy for very long. But if you do eat healthy, you at least put yourself in a better position to live a longer, healthier life. Well, the science of nutrigenomics goes a little bit deeper than that. It actually looks at how certain compounds can activate or deactivate your genetic expression. Now, we've all heard people say, my mother had diabetes, my father had diabetes, chances are I'll have diabetes as well. It's in my genes. Well, that may be true. You may have a genetic predisposition for it, but you actually have to put something into your body in order to trigger those genes. Well, doesn't it make sense that if you have to put something in your body to trigger those genes, that there's something you can put in your body to turn those genes down or even turn them off? Well, that's what the science of nutrigenomics is about. And so people ask me, is the science of nutrigenomics, is this kind of a new thing? And yes and no. The science of nutrigenomics has been around for decades, but it really wasn't until the early 2000s, when right after the human genome had been mapped out, that they really started to look at how can these genes, now that they know where they are and what they are, can these genes be manipulated? And so it wasn't until the early 2000s, when a group of scientists headed by Dr. Joe McCord made some discoveries that really rocked the medical community. In particularly, it caught the attention of John Quinones, the award-winning investigative reporter from ABC Primetime. Now, if you know anything about John Quinones, he is an investigative reporter, and if he shows up at your business, it's usually not a good thing. He is there because he has found something, and he's there to look and poke holes in whatever statements or claims you're making. So he went in and he asked for a blood test, and he asked to be used as an example as to whether or not this worked. So I'm going to share with you a short clip. The entire interview is somewhere around 15 minutes, but I'm going to show you just a short version of that clip that aired, and it was actually the lead story on the ABC Primetime. Now, when was the last time that a lead story was actually about some sort of a wellness or nutritional product, right? So as you watch this, I'd like for you to think to yourself, kind of like what I did. If this is true, how can this help you? And if it's true, is there any way that you can capitalize on it in what we call this new connected economy?
You want to get an edge on turning back the clock? Who doesn't? Well, it's no longer science fiction, but science possibility, a potential breakthrough. It may not look like the fountain of youth, but inside this nondescript building, I'm about to become part of an exciting experiment. For me, it begins with a blood test.
It wouldn't be the first time I've given blood for this company.
They want to check my levels of something called T-bars, which is a rough indicator of a person's actual age. T-bars can identify a condition known as oxidative stress, a kind of measure of the wear and tear on our bodies. Oxidative stress, like the rusting of an engine, is not a good thing. The problem of aging begins with the very food we eat to give us energy. As our cells burn that food, they also release toxic chemicals. Those chemicals, you may know them as free radicals, react with all the components of our cells, literally bombarding them millions of times per second, damaging all our cells. The result? Oxidative stress. And we all have it. The body fights back with a system of defenses. It makes two antioxidant enzymes, catalase and SOD, whose job is to gobble up the free radicals before they can harm our cells.
So, doctor, how often do I take these?
And so, here I go. With that swallow, I've just become part of a potentially landmark scientific experiment. It's called Protandim, and tests have already shown that it revs up the manufacture of those good enzymes in our bodies. More enzymes, fewer free radicals to harm us. Normally, oxidative stress, measured by those T-bars, increases with age, but taking just one pill of Protandim a day reversed that trend for everyone at every age, even for an 80-year-old. So just what's in this seemingly incredible pill? Well, actually, its roots are very humble. Protandim is a combination of 5 plant ingredients. Some you may know: green tea or turmeric, a spice used in Indian cooking. Others, Withania somnifera and Silybum marianum, are more exotic. High oxidative stress is associated with more than aging. It's been linked to hundreds of illnesses.
It's at the very center of many diseases: liver disease, diabetes, emphysema, asthma, all of these, strokes, heart attacks,
Even mental disease.
yes,
Depression?
Alzheimer's disease, depression.
But what about my progress? After nearly 2 weeks now, it's time to get my results. The result? My level of oxidative stress has declined dramatically. Just look at where I fall on the graph, before and after. Have we turned back the clock? Maybe not on the outside, but deep inside within my cells. Yes, indeed.
We do know that oxidative stress is part of those disease processes. I don't want to wait until I'm 80 years old and find out that I should have taken it.
The company that makes Protandim says its tests show the pill, made from ingredients used for centuries, is absolutely safe. For more, go to our website at abcnews.com.
LifeVantage began in a lab with a single powerful scientific discovery: discovery that proved that people around us have more capacity, potential, and ability within them than we have been led to believe. At LifeVantage, we can no longer accept the limits of the human condition. So we began introducing the world of biohack. The idea that you can be better today than you were yesterday. That you can take control of your own biology. That your health doesn't have to decline as you get older. You don't have to simply accept the hand you've been dealt. In just a few short years, LifeVantage has brought biohacking to the mainstream, shortening the gap between cutting-edge scientific research and the customer. Every day in research labs around the world, we are learning how much more our bodies can do for us if we only flip the right internal switches. So we're creating products that flip those switches. And we're doing it with a dedication to quality and safety and a different approach to selling those products. Sure, we could have gone the expected route, sold our products on big box shelves just like everyone else. In fact, at first we did just that. But we realized something. Our product sales were fueled by word of mouth and personal success stories, not marketing dollars. So we stopped paying big box stores and started paying our customers for what they were already doing, which allowed us to eliminate the gamble of traditional advertising in favor of performance-based payouts. And in the process, we ended up turning biohacking into a movement, empowering women, minorities, and all entrepreneurs to break societal barriers and realize what they're capable of, fueled by the power of a leveraged income. From 127 biohackers when we began to over 1 million in less than a decade. The movement has become a global phenomenon with no signs of slowing down. And our products aren't the only way we're investing in human potential. We're creating hardworking technology using AI, machine learning, and mobility to make it as easy to run a LifeVantage business as it is to take an Uber. Welcome to the LifeVantage app. Because of that first profound discovery, we are fiercely dedicated to helping others see what we have seen, to see the immense potential in those around us. It's an inspiring way to see the world. It's why the biohacker movement continues to grow at a blistering pace. It's why giving back to our communities is a fundamental core belief. And it's why in a few short years, we have expanded into 15 countries and counting and grown from one groundbreaking nutrigenomic product to over 20. It's why we now have relationships with CEOs, sports teams, and influencers. It's why LifeVantage has grown from $3 million in revenue our first year, closing in on $250 million. And it's why we will never stop. Because to change the way the world sees, you can't merely settle for different. You have to be better and engineer a world of potential in the process.
All right, so that report, that original ABC report aired back in 2005. At the time, LifeVantage was a small biotech company. It is publicly traded on NASDAQ, and it was doing about $200,000 a year in gross sales. Not really very big at all. The stock was worth about $1 a share. But shortly after that ABC report aired, within a week or so, they received well over $5 million worth of orders. The stock shot up from $1 a share to $20 a share overnight, just on sheer speculation alone. And that sounds like a good thing, but here was the problem, that this was a lab. This was a group of scientists. They were not really ready. They didn't have the infrastructure. They didn't have the manufacturing. So everything got backordered for over 8 months. Now imagine being someone seeing this on TV, wanting it for yourself or for a loved one, and then being told that you can't have it for about 8 months. So the stock goes from $1 a share to $20 a share, and it drops back down to 7 cents a share. And so it was in danger of being delisted. So it was kind of a disaster. In fact, I heard that the Oprah Winfrey Show called, and they wanted to feature Dr. McCord, and he never returned her call. He didn't know who she was. I mean, that's crazy, right? So it seemed like it was a disaster. But the good news is that universities from all around the world saw that John Quinones's oxidative stress levels was reduced by 45% in 13 days. So they contacted LifeVantage, the lab, and they said, we want to study Protandim as it relates to, whatever area of study that we're involved with. So for example, LSU, in conjunction with the Skin Cancer Foundation, found that Protandim reduces the proliferation of skin melanoma by an average of 57%. In that study, they outlined how Protandim suppresses tumors. Johns Hopkins University did a very similar study on lung cancer and had almost the same type of results. The American Heart Association, now this is the American Heart Association, they published a 26-page article in Circulation magazine on Protandim's effect on cardiac health. Now, to date, it is the only branded natural product ever featured by the American Heart Association in Circulation magazine. They then, in turn, funded another study with Ohio State University on Protandim's effect on bypass surgeries. You have some other ones, for example, Harvard Medical School, Texas Tech, the National Institute of Aging. They did a study. It was a 10-year study on Protandim and different types of mammals. And what they found was that this was the only natural product clinically proven to extend the life of mammals by an average of 7%. So in humans, we're talking about 5 years. Now, in that study, it was later revealed that the study was only on half of the dose. And my understanding is that that study has been reinitiated on the full dose. So we don't really know what's going to happen once you have the full dose, although my opinion is that if half the dose was 5 years, you know, some people would say that that the full dose would be 10 years, it would double. I don't think so. I think when you create that kind of synergy, it's going to be 15 or 20 years. And what we're talking about is healthy life, not life in some nursing home stuck, hooked up to a bunch of tubes. So all of these universities say the same thing, that this works 100% of the time on 100% of mammals. Now, in that report, that ABC report, the word oxidative stress, or the term oxidative stress, was used. And most people have no idea what that even means. This is what you should know about it, is that everyone has it. And it's such an important part of your health that if you go into PubMed.gov, which is the National Library of Medicine, this is your and my tax dollars at work. The National Library of Medicine, if you do a search for oxidative stress, there are over 200,000 studies just on the subject of oxidative stress. Now, you and I both know that studies aren't cheap. They cost thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. So what we're talking about here is hundreds of billions of dollars that are being spent to study this subject of oxidative stress, and yet the average person knows nothing about it. What you should know is that oxidative stress, along with another component that we're going to be talking about here in a few minutes, so oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction have been linked to well over 200 different diseases. Now, you got that right. So there are over 200 diseases that are linked to just two things: high levels of oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction. There's not 20 or 30 things, just two. It's been linked to things like cancer, diabetes, Parkinson's, lupus, fibromyalgia, autism, skin issues, psoriasis, it's Alzheimer's, I already said Parkinson's, et cetera, et cetera. So what is this nasty thing called oxidative stress? Really quite simple. If you cut an apple open and you let the apple sit out for a while, what happens to the apple? Yeah, it turns brown. That's the oxidation process. It's the same process that occurs if you take a piece of iron and you let it sit out and exposed to the air and water, the environment. It's going to do what? It's going to rust. It's going to oxidize. So it could be said that our bodies are literally rusting from the inside out. And it comes from the food you eat, the air you breathe. I mean, you know, we all want cleaner air, but no one's giving up their cars to do it. And there was a study, a friend of mine, Gianni Ballou, sent me a study from UCLA where they measured food, the nutritional content of food from the 1950s and then again in the 1990s. The study concluded you literally have to eat 50 or more times the amount of whatever that, whether it was spinach or blueberries, that you did in the 1950s just to get the same nutritional content in the 1990s. And I would venture to say that was what, about 15 years ago. It probably hasn't gotten much better then. So you should eat for good nutrition, but that's not going to be enough to reduce or give you the antioxidants that you need to reduce the oxidative stress levels. So what are your options? Well, Protandim is clinically proven to reduce oxidative stress by an average of 40% in 30 days and up to 70% in 120 days. It's been certified by the NSF so that what we say is in it is in it. It's been certified by the Banned Substance Control Group, so it's safe for elite level athletes. In that video, you saw the soccer team that is a Major League Soccer team, Salt Lake Real. We are the official sponsors of that team, and the players take our product. And then again, the study from the National Institute of Aging stating that it's the only natural product clinically proven to extend the life of mammals by an average of 7%. Now, people ask me, so what is so magical about this product, about this little yellow pill? Well, look, folks, it's not magic, it's science. It's actually just 5 ingredients, and some of these I was already taking. Most of these you're probably familiar with. For example, ashwagandha, bacopa, green tea, cinnamon, which is milk thistle, curcumin, or also known as turmeric. And you can get any of these compounds at any nutrition store. But here's the magic, if you will. It's not the ingredients, it's the right dosage of each ingredient. So it's almost like you're baking bread or baking a cake. You have what? Flour, water, oil, etc. But it's not just putting the ingredients in and a bunch of ingredients and mixing them up. It's the proper dosages. And that's what this group of scientists spent over 30 years developing, was the right formula. And their formula, based on all the studies, show that it's 18 times more powerful than if you just took all of these ingredients individually, all right? One of those studies was with Washington State University, and they studied that NRF2 pathway. That's the pathway that Protandim activates. It's a pathway that exists inside of your cells, inside of the endoplasmic reticulum. And in their study, they said that the activation of NRF2 may well become the most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. Now, understand that. That was a big statement for me. So I went to while I was in Utah, I spoke with one of the chief science officers, and I asked her, how is it that Washington State University can make this claim? And what she told me was, if you think about it, Marco, we know that there's over 200 diseases that are linked to high levels of oxidative stress. By activating the NRF2 pathway, it can reduce the oxidative stress levels significantly. In our studies, in the studies that most of these universities, they say that it's 40% in 30 days and 70% in 120 days. So doesn't it make sense that if you can do that, then your body is in a better position to fight off any type of environmental assaults that it may face, all right? So, people will ask, if this NRF2 activation is such a big deal, why aren't pharmaceutical companies creating medication that activates that NRF2 pathway? And the answer to that question is they are. They are doing it synthetically. Ours is done naturally. So Biogen, which is a pharmaceutical company, they spent over $1 billion creating a synthetic NRF2 activator. It was called BG12, now it's called Tecfidera. Their claim to fame was it was a medication that's used for multiple sclerosis, and their claim to fame was that it reduced the relapse of multiple sclerosis by 50%. In their clinical studies, they compared their product, their medication, to several other products. One of those was Protandim. Now, understand, this is what's called a peer-reviewed study. So in a peer-reviewed study, you have to, if you want it to be a peer-reviewed study, you have to state everything, all of the findings. You have to state them, whether they are in favor or against what you're trying to promote. So when they publish their studies or their results in PubMed.gov, they also published them in the Multiple Sclerosis Journal. They stated, and I quote, "Interestingly, Protandim, a dietary supplement consisting of herbal ingredients, was the most potent inducer and therefore may be the most suited as a therapeutic strategy." Now imagine the surprise on those scientists' face when they spent $1 billion coming up with a medication that activates NRF2, and when they compared it to our little Protandim product, they even said that our product was a better inducer. And what's interesting is that Tecfidera is a $65,000 a year medication, and one bottle of Protandim is about $50 a month. Oh, and you don't have to have multiple sclerosis to take Protandim because it works on just about anybody. All right. So that was the first theory of aging, and one of the first things that really is linked to all those diseases. And so the second theory of aging is mitochondrial dysfunction. Now, what the heck is mitochondrial dysfunction? If you think back to probably junior high school biology. Inside of every cell, you have different organelles. One of those organelles is called the mitochondria. It's sort of the powerhouse of the cell, sort of like the engine of the cell. If you remember the words like terms like ATP, Krebs cycle, all of that occurs inside of the mitochondria. And what's interesting is that the mitochondria is also the only other organelle other than the nucleus that also contains DNA. So as we get older, our mitochondria starts to break down. In fact, even if you're a healthy person, the average 50-year-old has 50% of the mitochondria that they did as a youth. And by the time you're 70, you have about 10% of the mitochondria that you did as a youth. Now, for some people, that rate increases is a lot faster. And because what happens is when you eat food and when you eat non-food, and we all know what non-food is, right? Cheetos, chips, I'm sorry, I shouldn't pick on Cheetos, but anything that is processed food, chemicals, all the food coloring, all of that goes into your stomach and gets liquefied. It goes into your bloodstream and goes into every cell of your body. Well, the part of the cell that processes all the food and non-food is the mitochondria. So our food is so full of toxins that it's now literally killing off the mitochondria at a much faster rate. And so by doing that, that has led to all types of different types of diseases. We know that every type of cancer, and I want you to understand this, every type of cancer has mitochondrial dysfunction. Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, autism. We know all the studies show that 78 to 80% of children with autism have high levels of oxidative stress as well as mitochondrial dysfunction, in addition to several other biomarkers. Okay, mitochondrial dysfunction is something that is prevalent. It's even prevalent as one of the reasons why people say, well, my metabolism has slowed down as I got older. Well, the reason why your metabolism slows down is because, again, by the time you're 50, you have half of the mitochondria. So your metabolism is running at about 50% of what it was as a youth. All kind of bad things happen when you have dysfunctional or unhealthy mitochondria. So our product, our NRF1 product, activates that NRF1 pathway that, again, is inside of every cell, inside of the endoplasmic reticulum. And that NRF1 pathway is clinically proven to promote what we call mitochondrial biogenesis, which is the creation of newer and healthier mitochondria. Now, the third theory of aging is the theory of sirtuins. And to that effect, LifeVantage has developed the first, it's an NAD synergizer that is clinically proven to promote the sirtuins. And here's why that's important. So on the bottom left, you see this is a chromosome, and you see how the tips of it are kind of red, inflamed. So the tips of your chromosomes are like the, in your shoelaces, you know, the little plastic tip that's at the end. Well, what happens over the course of time? That plastic tip starts to break off, and what happens to your shoelaces? They become frayed. Well, the same thing happens inside of those chromosomes. The tips start to become frayed. That's part of the aging process. So what this product does is it almost is like a cap. It reinforces the cap over those the chromosomes, which helps the aging process to slow down significantly. Now, I was talking to Dr. Brian Dixon, and he was saying that our product is clinically proven to promote the sirtuins by 100% within 24 hours. And there are other ways of doing it. You could go into what's called calorie restrictions, basically going into starvation mode. Your body goes into survival mode and it releases those sirtuins, but it only releases them at 94%. Now, again, you're in a severe calorie restriction, so that's probably not a very pleasant way to live. The nearest competitor will raise your sirtuins by 2%. Ours is clinically proven to boost it by 100%. Now, they did some studies on all three of those products, what we call the trifecta. And in that study, they took cells that were on the verge of dying. They activated that NRF1, NRF2, as well as the sirtuins. At the end of the study, what they found was that all the cells had gone in and repaired their own cellular membrane. They had created newer and healthier mitochondria, And even the DNA inside of that mitochondria had been repaired and was actually healthier. So the results were that at the end of the study, the cells were actually younger than they were at the beginning of the study. Now, I'm certainly not saying that you're going to live forever. But if you're anything like me, if I'm going to live to be 90, great. I want to live to be a healthy 90. If you're going to live to be, if I'm going to live to be 120, then great. I want to live to be 120. Go to sleep and then just never wake up. But you know what's interesting is that people don't die of old age anymore. People die of what? Disease. In fact, the #1 killer in America now is cancer. It used to be like 5 or 6, and now it's #1. The #2 killer in America is heart disease. The #3 killer in America, now get this, guys, this is according to the CDC, their latest report. The #3 killer in America is, are you ready for it? It's malpractice. And within malpractice, at the top of that category is pharmaceuticals. Guys, the very medications that are designed to help us are actually a part of the #3 killer in America. And yet, when you go to your physician and he wants to prescribe you a medication or a list of medications, and you question him on it, what happens? What does he do? He gets offended by it. Guys, I don't know about you, but I'm asking questions. I want to know what it is that I'm putting in my body well before it has any damaging effect on me. Okay, so now the company's created NRF2, that same NRF2 technology, and put it into different products. For example, Axio. I love Axio. Axio was originally designed to be a healthy energy drink, but we now know that it's a lot more than that. It is actually an NRF2 liquid brain food. It's designed to penetrate that blood-brain barrier, and it's got all kinds of really neat factors, including axonal genesis and all kinds of neurobiogenesis that occurs in the brain, which is a creation of newer and healthier axons, newer and healthier neurons in the brain. So I want you to look at what that means. Look at this child here. This is the nephew of a good friend of ours, Dr. Brett Brimhall, who's also a biohacker. And so he wanted, this is kind of, I guess, his spelling list. And then after about 2 weeks of biohacking, look how much organized his brain is. So handwriting is a big component for therapists like myself. So we look at handwriting because it's really telling of how organized a child's brain is. So I found that really remarkable. In fact, Axio was one of those products that I gave Seth to help him in his progress. A good friend of ours, Dr. Jeffrey Fanning, who is a clinical psychologist in the Glendale, Arizona area, he wanted to put the theory to the test. So he does what's called brain mapping. And so he took a number of people, did brain map studies on them before biohacking and then after. I think it was about 12 days after biohacking. And look at the difference. Again, anytime you see red, that's a bad thing. You don't want red. Green is where you want to be. And so he became convinced that biohacking, especially with the Axio, NRF1, NRF2, and the other products, was really the key way to go. The company also came out with several other products. For example, remember the study with LSU and where they did that with skin cancer, and they found that it reduces the proliferation of skin melanoma? Well, at that study's request, LifeVantage created a new skincare line. So it's an NRF2 activated skincare line. It has been phenomenal. There are several surgeons that are using this also because of its wound healing properties, but just for your everyday use. I mean, look at the difference in this woman's chin before and after. And I can honestly say that I've had a number of people, both men and women, who have complimented me on my skin over the last year and a half or so. The company also came out with the world's first NRF2 activated hair care system. I love the fact that the company is really interested in our overall health. So they have a prebiotic, probiotic, fat burner. And of course, people were starting to give Protandim to their pets. It started off with just somebody was giving it to their horses, show horses, race horses, and found that the horses were actually, their performance was better because it's certified by the banned substance control group, and it's safe for elite level athletes. It was not a banned product, so these horses or dogs and so forth are able to take the product. So the company decided to create a series for your pets. And you know what I love about that is that there's no placebo effect in your pets, in your dogs. You can't convince them that they feel better. They either feel better or they don't. So I love that about this. The company also came out with a probiotic. Probiotics, guys, are so important. Look, we eat foods now that are so contaminated that it is literally destroying our gut lining. You understand that your gut lining is only one cell thick. That's it, one cell. And we are destroying it with all of the food, the types of foods that we're eating. And what happens is that eventually leads to, for many people, it leads to what's called leaky gut, which is exactly what you think it is. Your digestive system starts to have holes in it, or perforations in it. The contents that are in your digestive system that's supposed to come out of your system as waste gets leaked back into your body, and it just gets recirculated over and over and over again in your blood system. That can lead to all kinds of bad things, things like sinus issues, allergies. Look at this, rheumatoid arthritis, of course, irritable bowel disease. But look at this, depression, anxiety, ADHD, all linked back to things that have to do with the gut. As a healthcare professional, I am well versed in what's called the gut-brain connection. I mean, look at this, acne, rosacea, ischemia, psoriasis. All of this is linked back to persons with an unhealthy gut. Now, people will often ask me, are these products available through they're available through stores, right? And the answer is yes, they were. They used to be. Shortly after that ABC primetime report aired, LifeVantage decided that they were going to sell their products through big box stores such as GNC, Whole Foods, etc., CVS, stores like that. Well, the problem is that if you've ever gone to a GNC store, typically the clerk who works there, bless their heart, they don't really know a whole lot about the products. And so there's no way that they're going to take the time to explain all of this, everything that I've explained over the last few minutes. So the product sat on the shelf selling less than one bottle per store per month. Meanwhile, you have all of these studies that are coming back saying that Protandim works on 100% of mammals, especially that Washington State University study that says that NRF2 activation may well become the most extraordinary therapeutic and most extraordinary preventative breakthrough in the history of medicine. So LifeVantage was faced with a dilemma, how to get the word out on the product as well as how to get the word out on the research. So they hired a group of consultants, and after much debate, it was agreed upon that this was a product whose story needed to be told by the very people whose lives had been changed by it. I hope that makes sense. Not necessarily through TV commercials that really nobody's paying attention to. Rather, they decided to go through independent distributors who themselves believe in the protocols and were willing to share their experiences with others, person to person, right, through word of mouth. Now, suffice to say that their strategy worked out very well. LifeVantage grew from about $2 million in annual sales to well over $250 million. But more importantly, LifeVantage created an opportunity for people just like you and I to capitalize on something that we're already doing anyways, which is sharing our experiences with others. For example, if you know that I'm looking for a good restaurant, hopefully you're going to recommend your favorite restaurant. And we do that all the time, whether it be movies or whatever it is that we're excited about. I want you to think about my experience with my son. My son is no longer in special education. This did for him in a couple months what 8 years of therapy couldn't do. So do you think that I've reached out to a few parents who are struggling with a very similar situation? Of course I have. Think about the story with Anna Cox. She was in a walker, had already ordered her wheelchair and was using a shower chair. She biohacks, and after a few weeks, no longer needs any of it. Do you think a few people have taken notice of her progress and maybe they've asked her what it is that she's doing, and maybe she has shared this with them? Again, of course she has. What about my friend Lori Miranda, whose son wasn't talking and now is? Do you think that maybe a few people have noticed that? Do you think that maybe she has shared that with a few people? Guys, this is what humans do. We share things, we connect with others, we share information that we're excited about. So LifeVantage will reward you based on the number of people that you help. So we share from our heart, we share with honesty, we share with authenticity. And when you do that, LifeVantage takes all of those hundreds of millions of dollars that they were normally paid out to big advertising agencies, and they will reroute that money to people just like you and I. So for example, if you're a Pro 3 and your business is doing about $5,000 in volume, your monthly reward is about $636 a month. And the great part is that you only had to show those persons one time. After you show it to them the initial time, every month as they order their product, they're doing it on their own, going to the website, ordering the product, it gets delivered directly to their home, and you get a portion of the proceeds. We call it leveraged income. Now at Pro 5, you're earning about $2,900 per month. Diane and I, we achieved this rank in about 6 months. Now look, guys, the money is great, but even better is knowing that we're helping hundreds and thousands of people whose lives are changing just because someone cared enough to share this with them. Now, some of you are probably a little more ambitious, a little more business savvy, and you're more interested in the higher elite ranks, such as Pro 7, Pro 8, and Pro 9. And there's some other bonuses as well. Once you get to those ranks, for example, the elite bonus pool, which pays out about 4% of the total global commissional sales to everyone who's at Pro 7 and above. So there is a lot more money, obviously, at those levels. But look, whatever level you're comfortable with, get back with the person who invited you so that we can help you come up with a game plan that best meets your long-term goals. Now, to be eligible to qualify for those commissions, you simply enroll as a distributor, and LifeVantage makes it very simple to do that. We have 3 different packages to choose from, so just get back with the person who invited you and let them know what you would like to do. All right, now, some of you might be wondering, why am I taking the time to talk about the business side of LifeVantage? Well, one thing for sure, I've been around for a long time, and I've spoken with enough people to know that people all over the world are praying for 2 things. One is better health and financial breakthrough. I've been there, done that, was not fun at all. But years ago, I realized that in today's economy, if you don't have multiple streams of income and you don't own a small business, you're probably going to work your entire life building someone else's company, someone else's dream. And at the end of it all, 95% of Americans have nothing to show for it. So if you're going to build someone's dream, why not build your own? Why not build something that you can pass on to your children and your grandchildren? We call it leaving a legacy. Now, for some of you, this may be the most important part of this workshop, and I understand that what holds people back is time and money. Nobody has time because we're all busy. Remember, I said that I was already running a traditional business, and in addition, Diane and I are proactive parents of 6 children as well as grandchildren. So we understand being busy. But the great thing about this is that you can build your base in what we call the nooks and crannies of your life. And with all the online tools available now, it's really not that difficult at all. I mean, really. But the other factor that holds people back is money, or what I call the lack thereof. Many people are so unhappy with the current circumstances, but they lack the capital to start their own business. Well, LifeVantage, because of their 3 packs, they've really made it very easy for you to overcome that. You know, it's really funny because people often ask me, why is LifeVantage such a viable business opportunity? And what they're really asking me is, why would Diane and I, people who are already successful in the traditional business, why would we choose to partner with LifeVantage, especially after declining so many other quote unquote opportunities? But look, let's be honest, making a living, helping people is a wonderful way to live. And I wake up every morning excited about life, and it wasn't always that way. But when looking at any business opportunity, there are 4 criteria that I use to determine its viability. First is if you have a business, you've got to have a product or a service. So as you can clearly see, LifeVantage products are award-winning, triple patented, and category creating. Unlike a lot of the other Me Too products out there that I've declined over the years, with LifeVantage, we have exclusivity. That means that there's no competition. And with our triple patents, we're going to have that for the next 20 years. The second important factor in determining a business is timing. If we were here discussing the original cell phone technology, yeah, probably not many of you would be very interested. Smartphone technology has made the old way of doing things obsolete. And in 1962, Everett Rogers, he came up with what's called the innovative adoption curve. And the way that works is this. Look, when the iPhone when the iPhone 1 first came out, very few people knew about it. And we knew nothing about applications or smartphones. A few years later, when the iPhone 4 hit the market, Apple's profits skyrocketed. So did the knowledge on how to use smartphones. It just took people time to get accustomed to this new technology, didn't it? And now everyone knows and has smartphone technology. So how does that relate to Protandim, to our company? In our industry, we have our hands on a baby apple. It started off with a flagship product called Protandim, and it was doing about $2 million in volume. But today, we are strategically in the same position as the iPhone 4. And if that's true, where do you want to be positioned in LifeVantage when it becomes a billion-dollar or a multi-billion-dollar company? Remember at the beginning of the workshop, I stated, or one of the slides said that nutrigenomics was going to become a $600 billion industry. Even a small piece of that would be worth it. So another factor, I guess, is in determining if a business is profitable is who's backing this. So look at Erin Brockovich. She is on our board of directors. We've got Montel Williams, Manny Pacquiao, other athletes, as well as celebrities who endorse, promote, or otherwise are connected with LifeVantage. And as I mentioned before, LifeVantage is a publicly traded company. We are traded as a biotech company in January of 2020. We were honored by having been invited and doing what's called the ringing of the bell. As you can see, LifeVantage is called a pioneer in nutrigenomics, the new science of dedicated to the biohacking of the human aging code. And look, all of that is wonderful and great, but what I think the most important thing for us to look at is who are the people you're working with directly. So I want to introduce you to some of the team that we work with directly. To the left of the screen is Patsy Caulfield. As you can see, Patsy is the woman who first introduced us to LifeVantage. She's the one who followed up with me for 3 years. You'll never find a kinder, gentler person than Patsy Caulfield. Of course, here in the middle, there's my beautiful wife, Diane, myself. Right here to the left of us is Carrie Dickies. She was a bartender as well as a fitness instructor. She is now a Pro 10 in the business, doing very well for herself. Here to the right is Carrie Williams. Carrie Williams is a Pro 9 in the business. She was a manager for Bath and Body Works. Her husband was I think commercial litigation. He was an attorney. And, you know, their story is that, she says, they were like ships passing in the night. They really weren't, didn't see each other hardly, right? They had 2 children. One of them had been diagnosed on the autism spectrum. They were able to, because of this business, they were able to both leave their jobs within 27 months, pour thousands and tens of thousands of dollars into the therapy, along with biohacking with their son, Luke. And now, when, a few years ago, when they moved to they bought a new house, put him in a new school, he had done so well that they didn't tell the school what his diagnosis is. And to date, they have no idea. You will, again, if you ever get a chance to meet what I call the fabulous Carrie Williams, I highly recommend it. Over here to the right of the screen is Randy and Brenda Gary. Randy is a retired military as well as a police officer, and Brenda was in human resources. Down here at the bottom right is Dr. Pratiksha Gandhi. She is the number 11 cardiologist in the world. Now talk about credibility, guys. She was quoted as saying that she has waited 20 years to find a natural product that does what Protandim does. Here you have Dr. Brett Brimhall. You remember earlier on the Axio slide, the child with the messy handwriting? Well, it was his nephew. And because of what he saw, he was also, what he saw with his nephew as well as what he saw with Carrie's son, Luke, he got really excited about it, and he is now a Pro 7 in the business. Over here, you've got Dr. Kwaja. He is a pediatric psychiatrist in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Back over here, you have Mark Shinsato. He was a kind of a corporate guy. He is now a Pro 10 in the business. Dr. Melody Rodarte, she is a Pro 6 in the business. She is the #1 internal medicine physician in the Phoenix area. And of course, here's Carrie Williams, as I mentioned her, and then her neighbor, Maria Williams, who's also a Pro 9 in the business. Guys, these are the people that we work with, people just like you and I, who by working together have created massive amounts of success. All right, so guys, that concludes our workshop for today. Let me kind of get out of the slides. Okay, guys, get back with the person who invited you and let them know what your level of interest is. If you're interested in becoming a customer, great. If you're interested in looking at the business opportunity that goes along with it, because you're interested in creating that long-term leverage income, again, get back with the person who invited you, and they'll be more than happy to put together a game plan. That concludes our workshop for today, guys. Thank you very much, and have a good evening. God bless you.
Thank you.